A Hells Angels biker made a deal with a cop's widow to save his crew from debt. What started as a desperate arrangement would become the most unexpected redemption story this small town had ever witnessed. The morning sun painted the Nevada desert in shades of amber and gold as Marcus Ghost Reynolds stood outside the Iron Horse garage, his leather vest heavy on his shoulders. At 42 years old, he had seen more roads than most men see in 3 lifetimes. His graying beard and weathered hands told stories that his mouth never would. The tattoos covering his arms were a roadmap of brotherhood, sacrifice, and survival. But today, none of that mattered. Today, the weight on his chest had nothing to do with the leather or the patches sewn into it. The Iron Horse Garage was more than a business. It was the heartbeat of the Thunder Riders Motorcycle Club, a chapter that had stood strong for over 30 years in the dusty outskirts of Henderson, Nevada. Generations of men had come through these doors, learning not just how to fix engines, but how to fix their lives. Veterans finding purpose after war, former inmates rebuilding their identities, young men with nowhere else to go discovering what family really meant. But now, the garage was dying, and with it, everything Marcus had spent 2 decades building. He pulled a folded paper from his back pocket, the edges worn soft from how many times he had read it. Final notice. The bank wanted $300,000 in 90 days, or the property would be seized. $300,000 might as well have been $300 million. The club had maybe $40,000 in savings, and most of that was earmarked for the annual charity ride that provided school supplies to kids in underprivileged communities. Marcus crumpled the paper and shoved it back into his pocket. Behind him, the garage doors creaked open, and he heard the familiar sound of boots on concrete. You gonna stand there all day feeling sorry for yourself, or are we gonna figure this out? The voice belonged to Danny Wrench Ortega, the club's vice president and Marcus's closest friend for the past 15 years. Wrench was a stocky man with a permanent grease stain on his forehead and a heart bigger than the Harley-Davidson engines he spent his days rebuilding. He handed Marcus a cup of coffee, steam rising into the cool morning air. I ain't feeling sorry for myself, Marcus replied, taking the cup. I'm doing math. Bad math. Wrench leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. The boys are worried. They can feel something's wrong. You can't keep this from them forever. I'm not trying to keep it from them. I'm trying to find a solution before I have to tell them there isn't one. Inside the garage, the sounds of the day beginning filled the air. Wrenches clanking, compressors hissing, the low murmur of men who had found brotherhood in the shared language of motorcycles. There were 12 full-time members of the Thunder Riders, plus another 20 who wore the patch but worked other jobs during the week. Every one of them counted on this place. Some had children in school, some were paying child support, some were one missed paycheck away from sleeping in their trucks. Marcus thought about old Tommy, 67 years old and still showing up every day to sweep the floors and organize the parts. Tommy had nowhere else to go. The garage was his home as much as it was anyone's. Then there was Miguel, 23 years old, fresh out of a 5-year sentence for a crime he committed as a teenager. The club had given Miguel a second chance when nobody else would. Now, he was one of their best mechanics, sending money home to his mother every month. How do you tell men like that the doors are closing? Marcus took a long sip of his coffee. You remember when we bought this place? Wrench nodded slowly. 2008, right after the crash. Nobody wanted commercial property. We got it for pennies. Pennies we didn't have. Remember who fronted us the down payment? Big Ray. Wrench's voice softened at the mention of the name. Raymond Big Ray Castellano had been the club's founder, a mountain of a man with a laugh that could shake windows and a generosity that seemed to have no limits. He had passed away 6 years ago, leaving behind a legacy that Marcus had sworn to protect. He believed in this place, Marcus said. He believed in what we were building, a home for men who had none, a family for men who had lost theirs. He also believed in you, Wrench added. That's why he made you president, because he knew you'd find a way when nobody else could. Marcus stared at the horizon, where the mountains met the sky in a jagged line. Maybe his faith was misplaced. Don't talk like that. Wrench's voice was firm now. We've been through worse. Remember when the Henderson PD tried to shut us down in 2015? All those bogus charges? We fought back and won. That was different. That was a fight we could win with lawyers and truth. This is money. You can't punch your way through a bank notice. The garage door opened again, and this time 3 more members walked out: Snake, Diesel, and Preacher. They were part of the club's inner circle, men who had earned their seats at the table through years of loyalty and sacrifice. They gathered around Marcus, sensing that something important was happening. "What's going on, Prez?" Snake asked. He was tall and thin, with a serpent tattoo winding up his neck that had earned him his name. Despite his intimidating appearance, Snake was the club's most gentle soul, the one who organized the toy drives every Christmas and cried at every wedding. Marcus looked at each of them. These were his brothers. They deserved the truth. "The bank is calling our loan," he said. "We've got 90 days to come up with $300,000 or we lose the garage." The silence that followed was heavy enough to touch. 300,000, Diesel repeated. He was the club's sergeant-at-arms, a barrel-chested man with a voice like gravel. "Where the hell are we supposed to get that kind of money?" "That's what I've been trying to figure out," Marcus admitted. "We could sell some of the bikes, but that would only get us maybe 50,000. We could do fundraisers, but even our best years only brought in about 30,000. Preacher, the oldest of the group at 61, stroked his gray beard thoughtfully. He had earned his name not because he was religious, but because he had a way of speaking that made people listen. "What about reaching out to other chapters? The Brotherhood extends beyond Henderson." "I thought about that," Marcus said. "But most chapters are struggling too. The ones that aren't are run by men I don't trust. I won't put our future in the hands of people who might want something in return we're not willing to give." The implication hung in the air. Everyone knew there were certain elements within the broader motorcycle club world that operated outside the law. The Thunder Riders had always kept their distance from that darkness, building their reputation on community service and legitimate business. It was a point of pride that Marcus refused to compromise. "So what do we do?" Snake asked. "Just wait for them to take everything?" "No." Marcus's voice hardened. "We fight. We figure this out. But I wanted you all to know what we're facing, so we can face it together." Wrench cleared his throat. "There might be one option we haven't considered." All eyes turned to him. "There's a property on the edge of town," Wrench continued. "Big piece of land, used to belong to some developer who went bankrupt. Word is it's sitting in probate court, tied up in some kind of family dispute. If we could get our hands on it, subdivide it, sell off the lots, we might be able to raise enough to pay off the bank and then some." "What's the catch?" Marcus asked. "The catch is it's not for sale, not officially. The person controlling the estate doesn't want to sell." "Who controls it?" Wrench hesitated. "Linda Hartwell." The name struck the group like a cold wind. Linda Hartwell was a name that carried weight in Henderson, but not for reasons that favored the Thunder Riders. She was the widow of Robert Hartwell, a Henderson police sergeant who had been one of the most vocal critics of the motorcycle club until his death 18 months ago. Sergeant Hartwell had made it his personal mission to find reasons to harass the club, convinced that their charitable image was a cover for something sinister. He had been wrong, but his suspicions had caused years of tension between the club and local law enforcement. "You're joking," Diesel said flatly. "I'm not. The developer who owned that land was her father. He passed away last year, left everything to her. But she's been fighting with his second wife over the estate, which is why nothing's been sold." "And you think she'd sell to us?" Snake asked incredulously. "Her husband spent years trying to destroy this club." "I don't know what she'd do," Wrench admitted. "But I know that land is worth a lot more than we need. If she sold it and split the money with us fairly, everyone wins." Marcus was silent for a long moment. He thought about Robert Hartwell, remembered the man's face twisted with contempt every time their paths crossed. He remembered being pulled over for no reason, being questioned at gas stations, being treated like a criminal when all he had ever done was help his community. But he also remembered something else. The day of Robert's funeral, Marcus had been riding through downtown Henderson when the procession passed. He had pulled over out of respect, removed his helmet, and watched as Linda Hartwell walked behind the hearse, her two young sons on either side of her. She had looked up as he stood there, and their eyes had met for just a moment. In that moment, he had seen no hatred, only grief, only the universal sorrow of a woman who had lost her husband. "Set up a meeting," Marcus said finally. "What?" The word came from multiple mouths at once. "Set up a meeting," he repeated. "I'll talk to her. Maybe she'll listen, maybe she won't. But we don't have enough options to leave any stone unturned." Wrench nodded slowly. "I'll see what I can do. But Marcus, be careful. This could go wrong in a lot of ways." "Everything about our situation right now is wrong," Marcus replied. "At least this is wrong with a chance of something better." The meeting was arranged for the following Thursday at a coffee shop on the neutral territory of downtown Las Vegas. Marcus arrived early, choosing a booth in the back corner where he could see the door. He had left his leather vest at home, wearing instead a simple black t-shirt and jeans. He did not want to appear threatening. He wanted to appear human. Linda Hartwell walked in at exactly 3 o'clock. She was younger than Marcus had expected, maybe late 30s, with brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and eyes that carried the tired weight of single motherhood. She wore no makeup, no jewelry except for a simple wedding band that she still wore on her left hand. When she spotted him, she paused for just a moment before walking over. "Mr. Reynolds," she said, sliding into the booth across from him. Her voice was neutral, guarded. "Marcus, please. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "I almost didn't." She accepted the menu from a passing waitress but did not open it. "When your friend reached out, my first instinct was to hang up." "I understand. Given the history between your husband and my club, I wouldn't have blamed you." Linda studied him with an intensity that made Marcus feel exposed. "My husband spent years convinced you people were criminals. He died still believing that." "Your husband was wrong." Marcus kept his voice calm, respectful. "But I understand why he believed what he believed. The media, the movies, they paint a certain picture of motorcycle clubs. Some of them deserve that reputation. We don't. But I'm not here to change your mind about that. I'm here to talk about something that might benefit both of us. The land." It was not a question. "Yes." Linda finally opened her menu, scanning it without really seeing it. "My father bought that property 15 years ago, thinking he'd build a retirement community. He never got the chance. Now his wife is trying to take everything he left me, and the courts are moving at the speed of bureaucracy." "I'm sorry about your father." She looked up, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. "Thank you. He was a good man. Complicated, but good." "Most good men are complicated." Marcus paused. "Mrs. Hartwell, I'm not going to insult your intelligence with a sales pitch. My club is in trouble. We're about to lose our garage, which means we lose everything. Our livelihood, our community programs, everything we've built. That land your father left you could save us if you were willing to sell a portion of it." "Why should I help you? My husband would roll over in his grave." "Maybe. Or maybe he would have understood that people are more complex than the patches they wear." Marcus leaned forward slightly. "Your husband was a good cop. I know that's hard to hear from someone he considered an enemy, but it's true. He cared about this community. He just couldn't see that we care about it too." Linda was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "My sons are 9 and 11. Since their father died, I've been barely keeping our heads above water. The legal fees from the estate battle are eating me alive. If I could resolve this quickly, sell the land, pay off the lawyers, maybe set something aside for the boys' future, I would, but I don't know who to trust anymore." "I'm not asking you to trust me," Marcus said. "I'm asking you to let me prove that you can." "How?" He had not planned what came next. It simply emerged, born from desperation and something he could not quite name. "Let me help you. With the boys, with the house, with whatever you need. No strings attached. Give me a chance to show you who we really are." Linda stared at him. You want to help me? Why? Because it's what we do. And because maybe, if you see that we're not the monsters your husband thought we were, you'll consider selling us that land. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's quite a gamble, Mr. Reynolds. Marcus, he corrected again. And yes, it is, but I've got nothing left to lose. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, the Las Vegas traffic hummed past, indifferent to the fragile possibility hanging in the air between them. My fence is falling apart, Linda said finally. The back gate hasn't closed properly in months. There's a list of repairs my husband started and never finished. Marcus nodded. I'll be there Saturday morning, 8 o'clock. I haven't agreed to anything. I know, but I'll be there anyway. When Marcus left the coffee shop, he did not know if he had made progress or made a fool of himself. But for the first time in weeks, he felt something other than despair. He felt hope. Check if you are already subscribed to this channel. If you are not, subscribe now because stories like this one are proof that life's most unexpected connections can change everything. And you do not want to miss what happens next. Chapter 2 began on a Saturday morning that felt different from the others. The desert air was cooler than usual, carrying a hint of moisture that promised nothing but teased everything. Marcus pulled his truck into Linda Hartwell's driveway at exactly 7:55, 5 minutes early, because that was how his father had raised him. The house was a modest single-story in a neighborhood that had seen better days, the kind of place where families started out before moving somewhere bigger, or stayed forever because somewhere bigger never became possible. He had brought tools. Not because he wanted to show off, but because tools were a language he understood better than words. A hammer could fix a fence. A wrench could tighten a loose hinge. A saw could cut through problems that conversation could not. These were the truths that had guided his life since he was old enough to hold a screwdriver. Linda answered the door in jeans and an oversized sweatshirt, her hair still messy from sleep. She looked at him with an expression that was equal parts suspicious and curious. You actually came? I said I would. Most people say a lot of things. She stepped aside to let him in. Coffee? Please. The inside of the house told a story of its own. Toys scattered across the living room floor, family photos on the walls, many of them featuring Robert Hartwell in his police uniform, smiling proudly. A small shrine of sorts on the mantel, a folded flag, a badge, a photo of Robert holding his sons as babies. Linda caught Marcus looking at it. I keep it there for the boys, she said. They need to remember their father. That's good. Kids should know where they come from. She handed him a mug of coffee, black, as if she had guessed his preference. The fence is in the back. The gate is the worst part, but the whole thing needs work. My husband started replacing some of the boards last summer, but then... She did not finish the sentence. She did not have to. I'll take a look. Marcus spent the next 4 hours in Linda's backyard, measuring, cutting, hammering. The physical work felt good, honest in a way that business negotiations and financial stress never could be. Sweat dripped down his back, soaking through his shirt, but he did not stop. Every nail he drove was a small act of building, of creation, of putting something broken back together. Around noon, the back door opened, and 2 boys tumbled out into the yard. The older one, who Marcus would learn was named Tyler, stopped short when he saw the stranger working on their fence. The younger one, Jake, was less cautious, running right up to Marcus with the fearlessness of childhood. Who are you? Jake demanded. I'm Marcus. I'm fixing your fence. Why? Because it needed fixing. Tyler approached more slowly, his eyes narrowing with suspicion that seemed too old for his 11 years. Are you one of those bikers my dad talked about? Marcus set down his hammer. I am. Does that scare you? Tyler considered the question seriously. My dad said bikers were bad, but he also said bad guys don't usually fix fences. Your dad was right about a lot of things, but sometimes even smart people don't see the whole picture. Linda appeared in the doorway, watching the exchange with an unreadable expression. She did not intervene, did not pull her sons away. She simply watched. Can I help? Jake asked, pointing at the toolbox. Marcus looked at Linda, who gave a small nod. Sure, you can hand me nails, but you have to be careful. This is real work, and real work means real responsibility. Jake's face lit up like Christmas morning. For the next 2 hours, he was Marcus's shadow, handing him nails, asking questions, watching everything with the intense focus that only children possess. Tyler kept his distance at first, but eventually his curiosity won out, and he joined them. By 3 o'clock, the fence was done, the gate was fixed, and both boys were covered in sawdust and smiles. I don't know what to say, Linda said as Marcus packed up his tools. I expected you to show up, do the minimum, and leave. Then you don't know me yet. He closed the toolbox. What else is on that list your husband started? You can't be serious. You've been here all day. And I'll be back next Saturday if you'll let me. These boys deserve a house that works right. Every kid does. Something shifted in Linda's eyes. A wall, perhaps, beginning to crumble. Why are you really doing this? Marcus thought about the question. He thought about the garage, the debt, the 90 days ticking away like a time bomb. But those things felt distant now, abstract. What felt real was the sawdust on his hands and the smiles on those boys' faces. Because I remember what it's like to be a kid without a father, he said. Mine died when I was 12. Heart attack. One day he was there, the next he wasn't. Nobody helped us. My mom worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. I swore that if I ever had the chance to make things easier for someone else, I would. Linda was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick. Same time next Saturday? Same time. The weeks that followed fell into a rhythm that surprised them both. Every Saturday, Marcus arrived at Linda's house. Sometimes he brought other members of the club. Wrench, who was a wizard with plumbing. Snake, who turned out to be an excellent painter. Preacher, whose calm presence and gentle wisdom seemed to put everyone at ease. The list of repairs shrank, but more importantly, something else was growing. Tyler began to open up, asking Marcus questions about motorcycles, about the club, about life. He was a thoughtful kid, carrying burdens too heavy for his shoulders, trying to be the man of the house when he was barely old enough to be a teenager. Marcus recognized that weight because he had carried it himself. Do you think my dad was wrong about you? Tyler asked one afternoon as they painted the garage door. Marcus dipped his brush in the paint, considering the question carefully. I think your dad was doing his job the best way he knew how. Protecting people meant being suspicious of anyone who might be a threat. He saw our patches and made assumptions. Most people do. But you're not bad. You help people. Some of us do. Some clubs don't. Your dad couldn't tell the difference from the outside, and honestly, that's not his fault. The world teaches us to judge by appearances because sometimes that's all we have time for. Tyler was quiet, processing. I wish he could see this, you here. Helping. Marcus put a hand on the boy's shoulder. Maybe he can, wherever he is. And maybe what matters is that you see it. You're old enough to start forming your own opinions about the world. Don't just accept what you're told. Look for yourself. Judge people by their actions, not their labels. As the weeks passed, something else was happening that Marcus had not anticipated. He was developing feelings for Linda Hartwell. Not the desperate, consuming kind of feelings that come from loneliness, but something quieter, deeper. It was in the way she laughed at his terrible jokes, the way she handed him coffee each Saturday without being asked, the way she looked at her sons with a fierce protectiveness that he recognized because he felt the same way about his brothers in the club. He tried to push these feelings aside. This was supposed to be about the land, about saving the garage, but every Saturday the land mattered less and the woman mattered more. Linda, for her part, was fighting her own battle. The ghost of her husband loomed large in that house, in every room, in every conversation. Robert had been a good man, a loving husband, a devoted father. But Robert was gone, and Linda was still here, still alive, still capable of feeling things she had thought she would never feel again. One evening, after the boys had gone to bed and Marcus was preparing to leave, Linda stopped him at the door. Stay for dinner. It was not a request. It was an invitation, and they both knew what it meant. Marcus should have said no. He knew the complications, the dangers, the 1,000 ways this could go wrong. But he looked at her, standing in the doorway of a house he had helped repair, and he could not find the word. Okay. They sat at her kitchen table, eating leftovers and talking about nothing and everything. She told him about meeting Robert in college, about their wedding, about the early years when everything seemed possible. He told her about the club, about Big Ray, about the men who had become his family when his blood family fell apart. I never thought I'd be sitting here with a biker, Linda admitted, swirling wine in her glass. If you'd told me this 6 months ago, I would have called you crazy. If you'd told me I'd be having dinner with a cop's widow, I would have agreed with you. She smiled, and something in the air between them changed, became charged, became honest. What are we doing, Marcus? He set down his glass. I don't know, but I know I don't want it to stop. This can't be simple. My husband's colleagues, my neighbors, everyone who knew Robert, they would never understand. When has anything worth having ever been simple? She reached across the table and took his hand. Her fingers were warm, trembling slightly. I'm scared. Me too. My sons would never be hurt by me. I swear that on everything I am. They sat like that for a long moment, hands intertwined, two people on the edge of something neither of them had planned for. The estate hearing is next month, Linda said finally. If the judge rules in my favor, I'll have full control of the property. If that happens, she paused, gathering courage. If that happens, I want to sell you the land. Not because of this, not because of whatever is happening between us, but because I've seen who you are. You're not what my husband thought, and maybe if he could see what I've seen, he would have changed his mind too. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. Linda, don't say anything, not yet. Let me do this because it's right, not because of feelings that might complicate everything. He nodded, respecting her boundary even as his heart raced. Whatever you decide, whatever happens, I need you to know something. The land was never the only reason I kept coming back. Maybe it was at first, but now... He struggled for words. Now you're the reason. You and your boys. Tears glistened in Linda's eyes, but she did not look away. My husband has been gone for 18 months, and you're the first person who has made me feel like I might be okay. That terrifies me. Why? Because if I let myself feel this, and then you leave, I don't know if I can survive losing someone again. Marcus stood, walked around the table, and knelt beside her chair. He took both her hands in his. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever this is, whatever it becomes, I'm here. Not for the land, not for the garage, for you, for Tyler and Jake, for whatever future we might build together. She looked at him, searching his face for deception, for manipulation, for any sign that this was a trick. She found none. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Okay, I'll try. I'll let myself try. He kissed her then, gently, a promise more than passion. And in that kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of a life that had ended and the beginnings of something new, two people who should have been enemies chose instead to be something else entirely. Chapter 3. Opened on the morning of the estate hearing, a day that would determine not just the fate of a piece of land, but the intertwined futures of two families who had found each other in the most unlikely circumstances. Marcus had not slept well. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions he had never expected to feel again. At 42, he had made peace with the idea of a solitary life, married to the club, devoted to his brothers. Linda had shattered that peace in the best possible way, and now the stakes felt impossibly high. He sat in his truck outside the Henderson courthouse, watching people stream in and out. Lawyers in suits, families in turmoil, bureaucrats managing the endless paperwork of human conflict. Somewhere inside those walls, Linda was fighting for her future, for their future. His phone buzzed, a text from Wrench. How's it going? Marcus typed back, Don't know yet. Waiting. The response came quickly. The boys are asking about you. Marcus smiled despite his nerves. In recent weeks, Tyler and Jake had become fixtures at the garage. Marcus had started teaching them about engines, about the pride of working with your hands. Tyler had a natural talent for mechanics, his careful mind perfectly suited to the precision required. Jake was more interested in the people, befriending every club member, asking endless questions about their tattoos and their stories. Tell them I'll see them this weekend, Marcus replied, and tell them to finish their homework. The hours crawled by. Marcus got out of his truck, paced the parking lot, got back in. He tried to listen to music, but nothing felt right. He tried to read the news on his phone, but the words blurred together. All he could think about was Linda, alone in that courtroom, fighting against a woman who wanted to take what her father had left her. Around 1 o'clock, his phone rang. Linda's name on the screen. Hello? We won. Her voice was shaking, but it was a shake of relief, of joy, of disbelief. The judge ruled in my favor. The property is mine. Marcus let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Linda, that's incredible. I can't believe it. After everything, after all the fighting, it's over. Where are you? I'm right outside. By the east entrance. I need to sign some papers and then... I'll be there. He found her standing in the shade of an oak tree, still clutching a manila folder of legal documents. When she saw him, she ran, actually ran, and threw her arms around him. He held her tight, feeling her heart racing against his chest. You did it, he murmured into her hair. We did it. I couldn't have gotten through these past months without you. They stood like that for a long moment, two people who had found each other in the wreckage of their former lives. When they finally pulled apart, Linda's eyes were bright with tears that she did not bother to wipe away. I have something to tell you, she said. What? She took a deep breath. I spoke to the judge after the ruling. I told him I wanted to sell a portion of the property immediately, before my stepmother could file an appeal. He approved an expedited process. Linda, you don't have to... Let me finish. She placed her hand on his chest, over his heart. I want to sell the northeast section to your club. Fair market value, no special favors. The money will clear your debt with more than enough left over to invest in the future. I've already talked to a real estate attorney. We can close within 30 days. Marcus could not speak. For weeks, he had been preparing himself for the possibility that despite everything, the land deal might fall through. That he might save his soul, but lose his club. Now standing in the dappled sunlight with this woman who had become his heart, he realized that sometimes life gives you more than you dare to hope for. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes. She kissed him then, right there in front of the courthouse, not caring who might see. A biker and a cop's widow, two people who should have been enemies, choosing instead to build something beautiful from the ashes of their old lives. But beauty, as Marcus knew better than anyone, always comes with complications. The complications arrived 3 days later, in the form of a Henderson police cruiser parked outside Linda's house. Marcus had been installing new shelves in the garage when he saw it. His first instinct was to leave, to avoid any confrontation that might jeopardize what Linda had worked so hard to achieve. But before he could move, the car door opened, and a figure stepped out that made his blood run cold. Detective Frank Morrison, Robert Hartwell's former partner and best friend. Morrison was a thick-necked man in his late 40s, with a face that looked like it had been carved from granite, and a reputation for being the kind of cop who bent rules when he thought the ends justified the means. He had been one of the most aggressive voices against the Thunder Riders during Robert's campaign against them, and he had not softened after Robert's death. Reynolds. Morrison's voice was flat, dangerous. Interesting finding you here. Marcus set down his drill. Detective? Something I can help you with? You can start by explaining why you've been spending so much time at my partner's widow's house. Before Marcus could respond, the front door opened and Linda stepped out. Her face was pale, her jaw tight. Frank, what are you doing here? Checking on you. Morrison's eyes did not leave Marcus. Making sure you're safe. I'm perfectly safe. Marcus is a friend. A friend. Morrison practically spat the word. Robert spent years trying to shut down these thugs, and now you're letting one into your home? Around his sons? That's enough. Linda's voice hardened. What I do and who I spend time with is none of your business. The hell it isn't. Robert was family. Those boys are as good as my nephews. I'm not going to stand by and watch you throw away everything Robert worked for. Marcus stepped forward, keeping his voice calm even as anger simmered beneath his skin. Detective, I understand your concerns. Robert was your friend and you want to protect his family. I respect that. But Linda is a grown woman who makes her own decisions. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here because she asked me to be. Morrison's face reddened. Don't you dare talk to me about respect. You people are parasites pretending to be community servants while running who knows what behind closed doors. We've never been charged with anything, Marcus said evenly. Never convicted of anything. Every investigation your department has ever conducted came up empty because there's nothing to find. Maybe it's time to accept that your assumptions were wrong. Morrison stepped closer, his hand drifting toward his belt. Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. There's a difference. Frank, please. Linda moved between them, her voice breaking. This isn't what Robert would have wanted. He believed in justice, in fairness. He wouldn't want you harassing someone who has done nothing wrong. Robert would want me to protect you from making the biggest mistake of your life. Then let me make it. Linda's eyes met Morrison's, unflinching. If being with Marcus is a mistake, it's my mistake to make, not yours, not anyone else's. The moment stretched, tension crackling in the air like electricity before a storm. Finally, Morrison stepped back. This isn't over, he said to Marcus. I'm going to be watching you. Every move, every transaction, every breath, and when you slip up, and you will slip up, I'll be there. He got back in his cruiser and drove away, leaving a cloud of dust and unspoken threats in his wake. Linda turned to Marcus, her composure cracking. I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was coming. It's not your fault. Marcus pulled her into his arms. I knew this wouldn't be easy. Men like Morrison don't let go of their prejudices just because they're wrong. What if he tries to sabotage the land deal? He has connections everywhere. Then we deal with it. Together. He tilted her chin up to meet his eyes. I've faced down worse than Frank Morrison. He's a bully with a badge. Bullies are only dangerous when you let them see you're afraid. I am afraid. Her voice was small, vulnerable. Not for me, for you, for my boys, for everything we're trying to build. Fear is natural, but it doesn't get to win. Not today. She nodded slowly, drawing strength from his certainty. What do we do now? Now we finish what we started. The land deal goes through as planned. Morrison can investigate all he wants. He won't find anything because there's nothing to find. And when the dust settles, when the garage is saved and the boys are safe and life goes on, he'll have to accept that he was wrong. And if he doesn't? Marcus smiled, a grim determination in his eyes. Then we keep going anyway. That's what we do. We ride through the storm until we reach the other side. The next few weeks were a crucible. Morrison made good on his threats, showing up at the garage with warrants, questioning suppliers, making the club's life as difficult as legally possible. But every search came up empty, every accusation fell flat. The Thunder Riders' record was clean, and no amount of harassment could manufacture crimes that did not exist. Meanwhile, the land deal progressed. Lawyers exchanged documents, inspectors examined the property, appraisers confirmed its value. Linda navigated the process with a grace that impressed everyone who witnessed it, including the club members who had initially been skeptical of the arrangement. And through it all, Marcus and Linda's relationship deepened. They stopped hiding from each other, stopped pretending that what they felt was just friendship. Tyler and Jake, far from being disturbed by the development, seemed to welcome it. They had been without a father figure for too long, and Marcus filled that void in ways that surprised everyone, including himself. The signing happened on a Tuesday afternoon in late October. Marcus sat across from Linda in a conference room filled with lawyers and paperwork, and when the final signature was applied to the final document, they looked at each other with a mixture of relief, joy, and something that felt like destiny. "It's done," Linda said, her voice trembling. "It's done." They did not embrace in front of the lawyers. They did not need to. The look that passed between them said everything that needed to be said. That evening, the Thunder Riders threw a celebration at the garage. Not a wild party, but a gathering of family, of brothers who had faced the possibility of losing everything and come through stronger. Linda was there with Tyler and Jake, who ran around the garage like they owned the place because, in a way, they did now. They were part of this family, woven into its fabric as surely as any patch or tattoo. Marcus stood on the raised platform that served as a stage for club announcements, looking out at the faces before him. Wrench and Snake, Diesel and Preacher, Old Tommy and young Miguel. 30 years of brotherhood, of sacrifice, of choosing to be better than what the world expected. "I want to thank everyone for being here," he began. "When I told you we were facing the end, I didn't know if there was a way out. I didn't know if we could survive. But I knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened, we would face it together." Applause rippled through the crowd. Today marks a new chapter for the Thunder Riders. We're not just surviving anymore. We're growing. The land we've acquired will fund our programs for years to come. But more than that, it represents something this club has always believed, that redemption is possible, that second chances are real, that people can change, and families can be built from the most unexpected foundations. He looked at Linda, who stood near the back with her sons. "I also want to thank someone who took a chance on us when she had every reason not to. Linda Hartwell lost her husband, a man who spent years opposing this club. She could have carried that opposition forward. Instead, she looked at us with fresh eyes and saw what we really are, a family trying to do right by our community. She's not just our benefactor. She's become part of this family, and I, for one, am grateful every day that she gave us that chance." More applause, louder this time. "So tonight, we celebrate. Not just the deal, but everything it represents. The future, the family, the road ahead." As the cheers rang out, Marcus stepped down from the platform and made his way to Linda. He took her hand, not caring who watched. "That was quite a speech," she said. "I meant every word." Tyler appeared at his side, tugging on his sleeve. "Marcus, does this mean you're going to be around forever?" Marcus knelt to meet the boy's eyes. "Tyler, I'm going to be around for as long as your mom will have me, and probably longer than that because I'm not very good at leaving." Tyler grinned, a real grin, the kind that Marcus had rarely seen from him before. "Good, because I have more questions about motorcycles." "I've got all the time in the world, kid. If you have been moved by this story of unexpected connections and second chances, pause right now and leave a comment saying, 'Family is not about blood, it is about who shows up.' This simple phrase captures everything this story represents, and I want to know who in this audience truly understands that truth." Chapter 4 began with a realization that crept up on Marcus slowly, then all at once. He was in love. Not the fleeting infatuation of youth, not the desperate clinging of loneliness, but the deep, steady love of two people who had chosen each other with full knowledge of what that choice meant. Linda had become the center of his world in a way that nothing else had ever been. The club, the garage, the brotherhood, all of it remained important. But now, there was something more, something that made everything else brighter. They had been together for 3 months now, counting from that first kiss in her kitchen. 3 months of dinners and conversations, of watching movies with the boys, of Marcus becoming a fixture in a life he had never imagined having. He had moved slowly, respectfully, knowing that Linda was still healing, that the boys were still adjusting. But now, with winter settling over Nevada and Christmas approaching, he found himself thinking about the future in ways that both thrilled and terrified him. "You're thinking loudly," Linda said one evening, curled against him on her couch while the boys played video games in the other room. "Sorry, bad habit. Care to share?" He took a breath. "I've been thinking about us, about where this is going." And where is it going? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. He shifted to face her. Linda, before you, my future looked like the garage, the club, growing old surrounded by brothers who were as close to family as I was ever going to get. I made peace with that. I was okay with it. And now? Now I want more. I want this. He gestured around them, at the house, at the sounds of Tyler and Jake arguing about their game. I want to come home to something besides an empty apartment. I want to watch those boys grow up. I want to be with you. Not just now, but for however long we have. Linda's eyes glistened. Marcus, I know it's fast. I know we've only been together a few months. And I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. But I wanted you to know how I feel. No games, no pretense, just truth. She reached up and touched his face, her fingers tracing the lines that years of hard living had carved into his skin. You know what Robert said to me the night before he died? He said, Linda, if anything ever happens to me, don't spend your life in mourning. Find someone who makes you happy and don't apologize for it. I thought he was being dramatic. I thought we had decades ahead of us. But he knew. Somehow he knew. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I never thought I would love again. I didn't think I was capable of it. But you, Marcus Reynolds, you've proven me wrong in the best possible way. I love you. I love who you are, who you're becoming, who you helped me become. I love how you are with my sons. I love how you see the world, even the parts that have been cruel to you. Marcus pulled her close, holding her as if she might disappear if he let go. I love you too, more than I know how to say. They stayed like that for a long time, two people who had found each other against all odds, choosing to face whatever came next together. Christmas that year was unlike any Marcus had experienced since childhood. Linda insisted on decorating the house to an almost absurd degree, with lights on every surface and a tree so tall it nearly touched the ceiling. Tyler and Jake threw themselves into the festivities with the enthusiasm that only children possess, dragging Marcus into cookie baking sessions and marathon wrapping paper battles. On Christmas morning, Marcus woke before dawn, nerves jangling in his stomach. He had bought presents for everyone, carefully chosen gifts that reflected the thought and attention he put into everything he did. But one gift was different. One gift would change everything. He found Linda in the kitchen, already brewing coffee, wearing the ridiculous reindeer pajamas her sons had picked out for her. Merry Christmas, she said, rising on her toes to kiss him. Merry Christmas. He pulled a small box from his pocket. I have something for you. Something I want you to open before the boys wake up. Her eyes widened when she saw the box. Marcus, is that... Open it. She lifted the lid with trembling fingers. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, was a simple gold band with a single diamond. Not ostentatious, not flashy, just beautiful in its simplicity. Linda Hartwell, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. I know I'm not what you expected. I know I'm not what anyone would have predicted for you, but I love you with everything I am, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that love every single day. Will you marry me? For a long moment, she did not speak. She stared at the ring, at him, at the life they had built together. Then she laughed, a sound of pure joy that filled the kitchen and spilled out into the morning. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and they held each other as the sun rose over the desert, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. When Tyler and Jake woke up, they found Marcus and their mother in the living room, sitting by the tree with suspiciously bright eyes. Why do you guys look weird? Jake asked. Linda held up her hand, showing the ring. Marcus and I are getting married. Tyler's reaction was immediate and unexpected. He launched himself at Marcus, wrapping his arms around him in a hug so fierce that it nearly knocked them both over. Finally, the boy said. I've been waiting for you to ask. Jake, not to be outdone, joined the pile, and for a moment they were all tangled together, laughing and crying and holding on to each other like the family they had become. The wedding happened in April, a simple ceremony at the garage that had been transformed for the occasion. Flowers everywhere, white chairs arranged in neat rows, an arch made of reclaimed motorcycle parts that Snake had welded himself. It was not a traditional wedding, but nothing about their relationship had been traditional. Linda wore a simple white dress that made her look like she was glowing. Tyler stood beside Marcus as his best man, while Jake served as ring bearer, carrying the bands on a pillow shaped like a motorcycle helmet. The entire club was there, along with Linda's friends and family, people who had been skeptical at first but had come to see what Marcus and his brothers truly represented. Preacher officiated. He had been ordained years ago, a detail that surprised everyone when they first learned it, but there was no one more suited to the task. His voice carried across the garage, deep and resonant, as he spoke of love, of second chances, of the courage it takes to open your heart after it has been broken. Marriage, he said, is not just about the good times, it's about showing up for each other when the world is hard. It's about choosing each other day after day, even when it would be easier not to. Marcus and Linda have already proven they can do that. They've weathered storms that would have broken lesser people. Now they stand here ready to face whatever comes next, together. He turned to Marcus. Do you take Linda to be your wife to love and cherish through joy and sorrow for as long as you both shall live? I do. And Linda, do you take Marcus to be your husband to love and cherish through joy and sorrow for as long as you both shall live? I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Marcus, you may kiss your bride. The garage erupted in cheers as Marcus swept Linda into his arms and kissed her with all the passion and tenderness he possessed. Engines roared outside, a thunderous salute from the brothers who had ridden in from chapters across the state to witness this moment. It was chaos and joy and love, all mixed together in a celebration that would be talked about for years to come. At the reception, Marcus stood to give a toast. The room fell silent, all eyes on the man who had led them through crisis and into prosperity. I've spent my whole life on the road, he began, running from something, riding towards something, never quite sure which. But standing here, with my wife beside me and my family around me, I finally understand what I was looking for. It wasn't a destination. It was this, a home. Not a building or a place, but people. People who choose you and keep choosing you, no matter what. He raised his glass. To family, the one you're born with and the one you build. May they always ride together. The response was deafening. Glasses clinked, cheers rang out, and somewhere in the crowd, old Tommy was wiping tears from his weathered face. As the night wore on, Marcus found himself standing outside the garage, looking up at the stars. The desert sky was clear, endless, filled with possibilities he had never dared to imagine. Linda appeared beside him, slipping her hand into his. Thinking loudly again? She asked. Always. He pulled her close. I keep waiting to wake up, to find out this is all a dream. It's not a dream, Marcus. It's real. We're real. I know. That's what amazes me. He turned to face her. A year ago, I was staring at a foreclosure notice, wondering how I was going to tell my brothers that everything we built was falling apart. Now look at us. Life has a way of surprising you. That's an understatement. He kissed her forehead. Thank you, Linda, for seeing me, for giving us a chance, for loving me when you had every reason not to. Thank you for being worth loving. They stood there together, two people who had found each other in the wreckage of their former lives and built something beautiful from the pieces. Behind them, the sounds of celebration continued, the laughter and music of a family that had come together against all odds. And in that moment, under the vast Nevada sky, Marcus Reynolds understood that he had finally found what he had been searching for his entire life. Not a place, not a title, not even the brotherhood of the club. Home. Real, lasting, unshakable home. Chapter 5 arrived with the first anniversary of Marcus and Linda's wedding, a milestone that brought reflection, celebration, and an unexpected challenge that would test everything they had built. The year had been good, better than good. The garage was thriving, flush with the resources from the land sale, and benefiting from a surge in community support. The Thunder Riders had expanded their outreach programs, adding a mentorship initiative for at-risk youth and a support group for veterans transitioning to civilian life. Marcus had become something he never expected, a community leader whose voice carried weight beyond the motorcycle club. Linda had found her own purpose as well. She had gone back to school, pursuing a degree in social work that would allow her to help other families facing the kind of crises she had survived. Tyler, now 12, had become Marcus's shadow at the garage, learning mechanics with a dedication that impressed everyone who watched him. Jake, 10 years old and bursting with energy, had developed a passion for cooking, filling the house with aromas that made Marcus's mouth water every time he walked through the door. It was by any measure a good life, a blessed life. But good things, Marcus knew, always attract those who want to tear them down. The trouble started with a phone call on a Friday evening. "Marcus?" Wrench's voice was tight with worry. "We've got a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind that wears a suit and threatens to shut us down. There's an inspector here from the city. Says we've got code violations that require immediate attention. He's talking about closing the garage." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. When he arrived at the garage, the scene was tense. A thin man with glasses and a clipboard stood in the center of the workspace, surrounded by club members who looked ready to erupt. Wrench intercepted Marcus before he could confront the inspector. "His name is Gerald Finch," Wrench said quietly. "He's been through every inch of this place, writing down everything he can find wrong. We've never had an inspection like this. Something's off." Marcus approached Finch with measured calm. "Mr. Finch, I'm Marcus Reynolds, president of this club. What seems to be the issue?" Finch looked up from his clipboard, his expression officious and cold. "Mr. Reynolds, I've found numerous violations of city code. Improper storage of hazardous materials, inadequate fire suppression systems, structural concerns in the eastern wall. This facility is not in compliance with current regulations. We passed inspection 6 months ago. Nothing has changed." "Regulations change, Mr. Reynolds, and my findings indicate that this facility poses a safety risk to its occupants and the surrounding community." Marcus studied the man, searching for the hidden agenda he knew must be there. "Who sent you?" "I beg your pardon?" "Random inspections don't work like this. Someone filed a complaint. Someone pulled strings to get you here on a Friday evening when we're least prepared." "Who was it?" Finch's composure flickered, just for a moment. "I'm not at liberty to disclose that information." "You don't need to." Marcus's voice hardened. "Frank Morrison. This has his fingerprints all over it." The name hung in the air. Finch did not deny it. "Detective Morrison is a respected member of this community," he said carefully. "His concerns about safety are entirely legitimate. His concerns are about revenge, not safety. He's been trying to shut us down since I married his partner's widow. He can't find evidence of any crime because there isn't any, so he's using city bureaucracy to do his dirty work." Finch gathered his papers. "I'll be filing my report with the city council on Monday. I recommend you consult with an attorney." He turned and walked out, leaving a cold silence in his wake. The next few days were a blur of phone calls, meetings, and mounting frustration. Marcus and Linda consulted lawyers, pored over building codes, and prepared for the council meeting where their fate would be decided. The violations Finch had cited were real, but minor, the kind of issues that existed in every commercial building of the garage's age. Under normal circumstances, they would have received a warning and a reasonable timeline for repairs. But these were not normal circumstances. On Monday morning, Marcus walked into City Hall with Linda by his side, and a folder full of documents that proved the garage's compliance record. The council chamber was fuller than expected, packed with supporters and detractors alike. He spotted Morrison in the back row, arms crossed, a smug expression on his face. "Mr. Reynolds," the council chairman began, "you're here to address the code violations cited by Inspector Finch. How do you respond to his findings?" Marcus stepped to the microphone. Chairman, members of the council, the violations cited in Mr. Finch's report are accurate but dramatically exaggerated in their severity. Our garage has operated for over 30 years without incident. We've passed every inspection, addressed every concern, and maintained a perfect safety record. The issues identified are minor and could be resolved within weeks. Yet the inspector recommends immediate closure, another council member interjected, because the inspector was acting on behalf of someone with a personal vendetta against our club. Marcus met the council's eyes directly. Detective Frank Morrison has harassed my organization for years, convinced we're criminals despite never finding a shred of evidence to support that claim. When I married his former partner's widow, his harassment intensified. This inspection is not about safety. It's about persecution. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Morrison's face reddened. Those are serious allegations, the chairman said. Do you have evidence to support them? Marcus nodded to Linda, who stepped forward with a stack of papers. These are records of every interaction between Detective Morrison and members of our club over the past 2 years. Traffic stops, questionable arrests, searches that found nothing. There's a clear pattern of targeting that goes far beyond legitimate law enforcement. As Linda distributed the documents, Marcus continued. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for fairness. Give us 60 days to address the cited violations, and we'll bring this facility into full compliance. But don't shut down a business that employs 24 people and serves this community because one man can't let go of his prejudice. The chamber fell silent. Council members exchanged glances, flipping through the documents Linda had provided. Then, unexpectedly, another voice rose from the audience. May I address the council? Everyone turned to see old Tommy standing at the back of the room, his weathered face determined. Sir, the chairman said, this is a scheduled hearing. Unscheduled comments are... I've been a member of this community for 43 years, Tommy interrupted. Served in Vietnam, worked construction, raised 3 kids. I've got as much right to speak as anyone in this room. After a moment's hesitation, the chairman nodded. Very well. Keep it brief. Tommy walked slowly to the front, his limp more pronounced than usual. I started coming to the Iron Horse garage 6 years ago, after my wife passed and I didn't have anywhere else to go. These men, these supposed criminals you're so worried about, they took me in, gave me a purpose, made me feel like I mattered again. His voice cracked. I'm 70 years old. Most people my age are invisible, but not at that garage. There, I'm family. They've never asked anything of me except to show up and be part of something bigger than myself. He turned to face Morrison directly. Detective, I know you think you're protecting this community, but you're wrong. These men are the community. They're the ones who show up when nobody else will. They're the ones who teach kids how to work with their hands. They're the ones who give veterans like me a reason to keep going. Tommy looked back at the council. Don't punish good people for doing good things. That's all I have to say. He walked back to his seat, and for a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, the chairman cleared his throat. We'll take a brief recess to review the materials provided. We'll reconvene in 30 minutes. The recess stretched longer than expected. Marcus paced the hallway outside the chamber, Linda's hand in his, while supporters and club members offered words of encouragement. When the council finally returned, the tension in the room was palpable. Mr. Reynolds, the chairman announced, the council has reviewed the evidence presented today. We find that while the violations cited by Inspector Finch are legitimate, they do not warrant immediate closure. You are hereby granted 90 days to bring the facility into full compliance, during which time normal operations may continue. Relief washed over Marcus like a wave. He squeezed Linda's hand. However, the chairman continued, we also find merit in the concerns raised about Detective Morrison's conduct. We will be referring this matter to the police department's Internal Affairs Division for further investigation. Marcus turned to look at Morrison, whose face had gone pale. For a moment their eyes met, and Marcus saw something he had never expected. Fear. As the chamber began to empty, Marcus walked toward his adversary. Morrison tensed, but Marcus did not approach with aggression. He stopped a few feet away, his voice low enough that only the two of them could hear. "This doesn't have to continue," Marcus said. "I'm not your enemy, Frank. I never was. I just want to live my life and take care of my family. The same thing you wanted for Robert." Morrison's jaw tightened. "You took his wife." "Linda made her own choice. She's not property to be taken. She's a person who found happiness after losing everything. If Robert were here, really here, I think he'd want that for her." For a long moment, Morrison said nothing. Then, slowly, the tension in his shoulders released. "I've spent 18 months trying to destroy you," he said quietly. "Telling myself it was for Robert. For justice. But it was never about that, was it? It was about me. About not being able to accept that he was gone and the world kept spinning. Grief makes us do strange things." Morrison looked at him. Really looked, for the first time without hatred. "I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I can let go of everything I've felt. But I'm tired, Reynolds. I'm so damn tired of being angry." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then stop. It's that simple and that hard. You just have to decide." He turned and walked away, leaving Morrison standing alone with his choices. Outside the courthouse, the celebration was already beginning. Club members whooped and hollered, slapping Marcus on the back, congratulating Linda on her testimony. But through it all, Marcus kept thinking about Morrison, about grief and forgiveness, and the long roads we travel to find peace. "You okay?" Linda asked, sensing his distraction. "Yeah." He pulled her close. "Just thinking about endings and beginnings. And what did you conclude?" He smiled, kissing her forehead. "That they're often the same thing." Chapter 6 opened on a warm evening in June, 2 years after Marcus and Linda's wedding, as the Iron Horse Garage prepared for its annual summer rally, the biggest community event on the club's calendar. The garage had been transformed. Tents lined the parking lot, offering food from local vendors and crafts from regional artisans. A stage had been constructed where local bands would perform throughout the day. Bouncy castles and face-painting stations kept the youngest visitors entertained, while motorcycle demonstrations and safety workshops appealed to the older crowd. The event had started 5 years ago as a small fundraiser for the club's veterans programs. Now it drew thousands of visitors and raised enough money to fund their charitable work for the entire year. It was a symbol of everything the Thunder Riders had become, a force for good in a community that had once feared them. Marcus stood on the roof of the garage, surveying the scene below. He could see Linda at one of the food tents, laughing with volunteers as they prepped trays of burgers and hot dogs. Tyler, now 14 and nearly as tall as Marcus, was helping wrench with a motorcycle demonstration, explaining engine mechanics to a group of fascinated kids. Jake, 12 years old and brimming with confidence, had taken charge of the face painting station, applying designs with an artistic flair that surprised everyone. "Nice view from up here." Marcus turned to find Preacher climbing through the roof access hatch, moving slower than he used to, but no less determined. "Thought you'd be down there with the crowds," Marcus said. "Got tired of shaking hands." Preacher settled onto a crate beside him. "Wanted to talk to you before things get too crazy." "About what?" Preacher was quiet for a moment, looking out at the gathering below. "I'm stepping down from the council," he said finally. "Effective end of summer." Marcus felt the weight of the announcement settle over him. Preacher had been on the club's leadership council for over 20 years, a steadying presence through countless storms. "You sure about this?" "I'm 63 years old, Marcus. I've given this club everything I have. Now it's time to give something back to myself." He smiled, a rare expression that softened his usually stern features. "There's a fishing cabin up in Montana with my name on it. I figure I've earned a few years of catching trout and not worrying about anything heavier than what lure to use." Marcus nodded slowly. "You've more than earned it. But you'll be missed." "I know." Preacher reached into his pocket and pulled out a worn patch, the same one he had worn on his vest since being inducted into the club decades ago. "I want you to have this. Preacher, I can't. Yes, you can. This patch has seen me through battles you can't imagine. Wars overseas and wars at home. But its journey isn't over. It belongs with someone who'll carry it forward, who'll remember what it represents. Marcus took the patch, feeling the weight of history in his hands. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just promise me you'll keep doing what you've been doing. Keep building this family. Keep serving this community. Keep showing the world that men like us can be better than what they expect. I promise. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the celebration unfold below them. The sounds of laughter and music drifted up, mixing with the summer breeze. There's something else I want to tell you, Preacher said. Something I've never told anyone. What's that? Robert Hartwell. Preacher's voice dropped. The cop who gave us so much trouble before he passed. I knew him. Not well, but we'd talked a few times over the years at various community events. Marcus turned to look at him. You never mentioned that. Didn't see the point. The man was set against us. Nothing I said was going to change his mind. But there was one conversation that stuck with me. About a year before he died, we ended up standing next to each other at a high school football game. Both of us watching the game, neither of us talking. Then out of nowhere, he says, You know, I've never actually met a bad man in your club. He said that? Swear on my life. I asked him why he kept hassling us then, and he said, Because I'm afraid of what you could become. I've seen good organizations turn bad when nobody's watching. I figure if I keep watching, maybe I can prevent that. Marcus absorbed this revelation. He was trying to protect the community, in his own way. In his own way. Doesn't excuse the harassment, but it explains it. He wasn't evil, Marcus. He was scared. And scared people do stupid things. I've come to understand that. Preacher stood, stretching his aging limbs. Go be with your family. This is a celebration, not a time for old men philosophizing. Marcus stood as well, clapping Preacher on the shoulder. You're not old. You're seasoned. Seasoned, Preacher chuckled. I like that. Makes me sound like a good steak instead of a beat-up old fool. They climbed down from the roof together, returning to the throng of activity that defined the summer rally. Marcus found Linda almost immediately, drawn to her like a compass finding north. Everything okay? She asked, noticing something in his expression. Preacher's retiring, moving to Montana. Oh. Linda's eyes softened. How are you feeling about that? Mixed. He's earned his rest, but losing him from the council will be strange. He's been there as long as I've been in the club. Linda took his hand. Change is part of life. The club will adapt. It always does. Yeah. Marcus looked around at the celebration, at the smiling faces and the children running through the crowd. It does. The day wore on, filled with moments that would become memories. Tyler helped a young kid sit on a motorcycle for the first time, the boy's face lighting up with wonder. Jake painted an elaborate dragon on a little girl's cheek, receiving a hug so fierce that it nearly knocked him over. Linda won a pie-eating contest, emerging victorious and covered in blueberry filling, laughing harder than Marcus had ever seen her laugh. As the sun began to set, Marcus took the stage to address the crowd. Thousands of faces looked up at him, a sea of community members who had come to celebrate what the Thunder Riders represented. Thank you all for being here, he began. Every year this event reminds me why we do what we do, not for recognition, not for praise, but for this. He gestured to the crowd. For community, for connection, for the simple but powerful truth that we're all better when we look out for each other. He paused, gathering his thoughts. A few years ago, this club was facing the end. We were going to lose everything we'd built, but we didn't give up. We found a way forward even when it seemed impossible. We found allies where we expected enemies, and family where we expected nothing. He looked at Linda, who smiled up at him with tears in her eyes. Tonight, I want to thank everyone who has been part of this journey. The members of this club who ride beside me through every storm, the community who has embraced us despite our leather and our noise, and my wife Linda, who taught me that love can blossom in the most unexpected places. Applause rippled through the crowd, As we move forward, let's remember what brought us here. Courage, loyalty, the willingness to stand up for those who cannot stand for themselves. These values don't belong to any club or organization. They belong to all of us. They're what make us human. He raised his hand in the salute that had become the club's trademark. For family, for community, for each other. The crowd erupted, voices raised in a thunderous cheer that echoed across the desert. Engines roared as bikers started their machines, creating a symphony of power and purpose that seemed to shake the very ground. Marcus stepped down from the stage and into Linda's arms. Around them, the celebration continued, a testament to everything they had built and everything they would continue to build. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too. More than words can say." They held each other as fireworks began to explode overhead, painting the night sky in colors of triumph and hope. Later that evening, as the crowds dispersed and the cleanup began, Marcus found himself alone in the garage, surrounded by the machines and memories that had defined his life. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, the desperate search for salvation that had led him to Linda, the unlikely love that had blossomed against all odds, the family he had built from broken pieces and rebuilt into something whole. He pulled out the patch that Preacher had given him, running his thumb over the worn fabric. So much history in such a small thing. So much sacrifice and brotherhood and hope. Footsteps behind him. He turned to find Tyler standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the fading lights of the celebration. "Hey, kid, shouldn't you be helping clean up?" Tyler walked over, standing beside Marcus at the workbench. "I wanted to ask you something." "Shoot." "When I'm old enough, will you teach me to ride? Like really ride, not just the basics?" Marcus looked at the boy who had become his son in every way that mattered. "I'd be honored." Tyler grinned, then surprised Marcus by hugging him fiercely. "Thanks, Dad." The word hit Marcus like a lightning bolt. Dad. Tyler had never called him that before. Marcus struggled to find words. "You've never..." "I know. I wasn't ready before. But I am now." Tyler pulled back, his eyes earnest. "You're my dad, Marcus. Not because of blood, but because of everything you've done. Everything you are. That's what matters." Marcus felt tears prickling at his eyes, tears he would not let fall, tears that spoke of a joy too deep for words. "Yeah," he managed. "That's what matters." They stood together in the garage, father and son, surrounded by the tools and machines that had brought them together. Outside, the last fireworks faded into smoke and memory. But inside, in the heart of Marcus Reynolds, something was just beginning. A legacy, a purpose, a family built not from blood, but from choice. And as he looked at Tyler, he knew that the road ahead, whatever it held, would be worth every mile. If you have watched this far, it is because this story touched something inside you. Leave a comment saying, "I watched this far," so I can get to know you and know who really loves the stories on this channel. And while you are here, make sure you have subscribed to this channel. Every subscription helps bring more stories of redemption, family, and the courage to start again. Hit the like button if this story moved you, and share it with someone who needs to hear that second chances are real. Because in this world, on these roads, among these brothers and sisters, one truth remains. Family is not about where you come from. It is about who shows up when it matters. And Marcus Reynolds, once a man with nothing, had become a man with everything. Not because he took it, because he earned it. One choice at a time, one day at a time, 1 mile at a time. The road continues, and so do we.